Hi, everybody, and welcome to this week's episode of Making Like Two Humans Being. I'm Julie here. With me, as always, is Kate Vago. Yay! And today we're going to talk probably a little bit of hodgepodge stuff. We're going to start off with reset because as we're talking right now, which is we're actually recording this on October 10th, 2022, it is the full moon is starting to ebb off a little bit, but the full moon is in Aries, and it is as little as I know about astrology, and it is enough to be dangerous. I have learned that it is a reset time right now. So learning to reset, and Kate and I just had a long conversation about how her featured practitioner's work is going this month and how she's feeling and all of that. So we had a little chat with the guides as far as all that's concerned. So we just want to just talk about reset, practicing intuition, honing the muscle possibly about your intuitive muscle, because I was just listening to as well before this. It is I think it's the 4-day Raise Your Intuition something challenge on Hay House, and it's free. So it's like, what the heck? So I listened to Kyle Gray, a fellow human in Scotland. Yeah, you know him, right? Oh, Kyle Gray. Oh, he's so cute. He's this.
You say cute.
He's cute. He's in Edinburgh, and he is all about angels. And he's also about raising your vibration. And he's also about yoga. He's been doing yoga classes in Edinburgh, by the way. But he's got a Scottish accent, and he's cute. So anyway, so he did the first.
Can you just pause it while I go and Google him?
Say what?
Can you just pause it while I go and Google him? I'm joking.
Any hoozle. Yeah, he was talking today about, he just had a little lesson on what your intuition means. Not what it means, but like everybody has intuition, and being able to tap into intuition is really, there's a practice to it. There's like a strengthening of the intuitive muscle, if you will, which we have all talked about. And I just thought, it's interesting because there's days when I think like, oh, I should have like, not too long ago, there was a reading that I had. And when I was like late that night, as I was laying in bed, now I've started this practice of when I lay in bed at night and get ready, I like check in, particularly with my lead guide, and just like, hey, how'd it go today? Anything I need to learn, or just kind of have a conversation, just to chat. Usually I fall asleep before I actually hear anything. I think he puts me out. But where was I going with this? There was one weeks ago, there was a reading that I had, and I thought, oh my gosh, did I read the fields? Was the field part of that? Or was, because we can communicate with the animals, we can communicate with the human, if you will. We can also communicate with the field, we can communicate with land, we can communicate in time, we can do all these different things. I'm like, oh, did I communicate with the field? And I thought, no, you actually were talking to the animal. But it's just, things become so strong in us, I will say, that it just feels sometimes that we then, our brains start to doubt where the information's coming from. Because
I would ask you about that then.
Yeah.
Because when we learn, I understand that as your intuitive muscle gets stronger, you should be able to discern. Can you? Because
no, that's what I mean. Yeah, that's what I mean. That because my intuitive muscle is so strong, then it's stronger than it's ever been, that I'm receiving information, and in the moment it can be hard for me to realize that I'm getting it from elsewhere, because it's just, but we're all connected.
But I thought that when we learn, we were taught that it's all about your intentions. So how do you control that?
Yeah, no, it is intention. So because my intention was set on, that's a really good point. So because my intention was set on the subject of the reading in that particular place where I doubted myself, it was confirmed when I went back and just sat with it for a little bit. I did indeed connect with where I wanted to connect. It's just interesting to me that because we do this for a living, this intuitive, that we can connect to wherever, the information can begin to come in so fast. Like I'll be out in the preserve and I get like the name of the tree. I'll pass a tree that hasn't given me their name before, and they'll give me their name. And I'm like, wait, did I just make that up? And I have this little this little conversation with my brain. Did I make it up? No, I did. Yes, I did. No, I didn't. Yes, I did. No, I didn't. But I didn't. It came to me. I didn't make that up. Pooh, it just, yeah.
So can you explain, since we're doing a hodgepodge, I'll give you a hodgepodge.
Yeah.
I had a reading last night where we had a few minutes at the end. I had never come across two animals that were like bang, bang, bang. Like we got two whole soul lessons, everything lessons out the way, and I still had another 8 minutes to go. And I was like, I don't know, they're very efficient, these animals of yours. And she had.
That's cool. Well, that was in when I read the horoscope about full moon in Aries, the efficiency, right. Or no, the number, the 10, 10, 22 numerology thing was about efficiency. Okay, go ahead.
and she said, well, I've got all these animals in the past, you know, can you just see if anyone wants to step forward? So my intention was quite open, and immediately one of them stepped forward and wanted to chat, and it was just chit chat. There was nothing profound about it. She probably had enough profound stuff by then. Then this little child came out of nowhere, and when I described it, the only thing that came up for me was a knowing that, it wasn't knowing, but the thing that had triggered in me trying to work out where this child fit in, because it didn't resonate with the reading, was my sister's godparents, can't remember anyway, but they've tragically lost a child who drowned in a puddle, like less than 6 inches of water. Wait, and that was what came up. Not my parents, my friends of my parents. So I think they were my sister's godparents.
Okay.
So I don't know the story. I mean, I know the story from obviously my mother telling, because she'd always say, oh, you know, you should never leave children unattended, they can drown in a puddle. So obviously very tragic circumstance. And I'm sitting there going, I don't want to share this with her because I don't know the relevance of this child that came up. I mean, I did in the end. I said, I'm sorry, this is very tragic. I don't know why it's coming up, and I don't know what it has to do with this child, but I'm just telling you this is the association. She was fine about it. But where would that have come from then, Julie? Was it because I was too open in my, come on, anyone got anything to say?
Well, that's a really good question.
But I was talking to the dog though. So she just sort of said, well, the dog had a life before the dog came to me, and I'm pretty sure there were children. But I'm thinking, why would the dog share that though? You know, they don't just share random information unless there's a meaning to it. Or maybe they do.
So what was the question that you asked before the child appeared?
Before the child, I was just, tell me what we need, you know, just, do you have a message for the lady?
That you were asking the dog, the new dog that came in.
Yeah, you know. So I was just describing, just the dog was, I can't remember, the dog was just chit chat, saying how well she's doing, you know, how proud she was of how the lady had evolved, just stuff like that. And then I see this child. Didn't just the back of the child, blonde hair, this big, you know, sort of in detail just from the back. And then I had this knowing of this story about, I mean, why would I have thought of that? I just wonder, I'm sort of half hoping I get an email from her, you know, going, oh, what about that child? But I was thinking, well, why? Like, everything's significant, right? Or is it?
No, it is. I humbly believe everything is. I'm going to come back to how they use what's in my current vocabulary in a second, but I just want, so what did you share? Did you share the full thing with the human?
I just, first of all, I just said, I see a young boy, he's blonde, you know, I said, does this mean anything to you? Does it? No. And I said, what? And I asked the dog, why are you showing me this child? But I didn't really get anything. It was just sort of,
okay.
And then I had this like memory of the child drowning, and in the end I said, look, I don't, you know, I said, I don't know why this is coming up, I don't understand the significance, and I'm not saying this. And I said, I did say to her, I don't get premonitions, at least, you know, so this is not anything sinister, some sort of warning. I just said that the only thing that's come up for me when I see this child is this story that my parents told me about a child drowning. that she didn't seem fazed by it, because I was a bit sort of like, well, do I share that?
Yeah, I would have shared, because if you got the memory, then
Yeah, because why would I suddenly think of this story?
She may go back and share what happened with someone else who may remind her about something. Who knows? I had something similar where did a reading for a woman whose animal had crossed, and the animal presented me all of a sudden with like all this lavender, and I have a lavender plant that I planted this year at this house that I'm really proud of. I have dried lavender on my bookshelf, lavender, and I love lavender essential oil. So I thought, okay, maybe it's just a sign for me to calm down. But I did share with her, I'm like, he's presenting me with a bunch of lavender plant, like right here. Then never made sense to her in the reading. She emailed later and said that was actually, she had forgotten that she used to call him her lavender boy. So sometimes it takes a little bit. So it'd be interesting. Maybe maybe it will make sense to her. Maybe it won't. Maybe, who knows? The other thing that I put over here was that it's interesting also to me is that the animals, sometimes my guides, but a lot of times the animals will use whatever book I'm currently reading to tell their human about that book. So like of late, I have this book called The Forever Dog, which is Dr. Karen Becker and Rodney Habib, and they've done all this research on animal nutrition, animal care, all the great stuff. And it's a really good reference guide. But I've had of late humans making appointments with me where their animals aren't feeling wonderful. And so the animals are actually using that book to say, hey, read this book, but also here's some of the highlights in this book that you need to be aware of. And I just find that fascinating to me that they also are pointing me to what book. So like I finished, we've been reading The Field in our book club, and I finished it. I love the last 2 chapters. So I'm finished. So now I'm like, okay, and I'm getting ready to go to Alaska on Wednesday. So I'm like, I need a book. Which one do I read? So this time, instead of just, this is the one I should be reading right now, there's 3 that I feel drawn to. So I'm going to ask before I pack it, what one should I, but I also have to prepare a whole presentation. So I've got stuff to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
if you're talking to a dog and then you get an image of a child, that's coming from the dog.
Yeah. For me, I've had it, I have had readings where, so I have this package, right, where you can do a soul level animal communication session, and then you get a soul level intuitive coaching session as a follow-up session at a discounted rate. And we take this lesson and dive a little bit deeper with the guides. And I had a client had that package, and in the intuitive coaching session, a deceased loved one appeared. Now I'm not, and I said it right away. I'm like, I'm not a medium. I don't know, but I can tell you, I feel, and it was like, there was a masculine energy standing over there in the corner. And I'm just like, and the person could identify it, which was really kind of cool. But I could also get a sense of how this energy wanted to interact with the human. And that was kind of cool. Which then I consider, do I need to study mediumship? But then I don't feel compelled to do that either.
No, because I've had animals show me, like grandma sitting in a chair, and I'll say, they're showing me someone who I feel is your grandmother, but it's an older woman and she looks like this, and I'm like, oh yeah. And I've interacted with them just like they're part of the animal, the part of the experience. I don't think you need to, unless you're drawn. No,
I don't feel drawn to it. Yeah, no.
I don't feel unable to speak to dead people. I'm sure if I was put on a spot, I could.
Yeah.
I've had conversations with Gary's dad, for example. I don't. I don't know that if I was put on a spot, would I? I probably would do it, as long as it's not loaded.
Yeah, no. I mean, load. I guess I would trust that I was being asked to do it because I could help. I think that's like my ongoing intention. Yeah, I know, I'm pretty sure if I needed to do it, I mean, well, it's so interesting. Okay, so Laura Lynn Jackson is a medium. She's been on Netflix on Goop, the first Goop lab. And she even talks about, she was actually on my favorite podcast of late is Elise Lunan, Pulling the Thread. And she was on Elise Lunan back in August. And she talks about that too, that really we're all connected. And even the field brings this up too. We're all connected. Everything's connected. We're all connected to the divine. We're all are the divine, having a human experience or flower experience or animal experience, whatever. But because of that connection or connectivity, we can all do any and all of this work. So like you and I, we specialize in animals, and then you do body code as well. Whereas I specialize in, right now I just specialize in animals, although astrology is interesting to me.
And talking to your guides.
And talking to my guides. Yeah, that I find really fascinating too. And the trees. I like to talk to the trees.
We don't have many trees around here.
No.
I'd like to spend more time with trees. Farmers seem to not like trees.
I know, it's so sad.
I've got a few in our fence. On our fence line, there's the young trees. I mean, they're quite tall now, but they're still relatively, we don't have any great big old trees that have been around for, well, I suppose there are at the bottom of the river.
Yeah. I hope now that like there's more and more conversation about the mother tree, we read that book, Finding the Mother Tree, as well as how all the trees are actually dependent. So not a single species dependent on a single species. It's like they're all intermingled. So the diversity of a forest is really, really important to the health of a forest and to health of everything on the ground and all the things, which just is like, hello, humanity. Look.
I thought that was fascinating, and it puts to bed this whole idea that everything in life is competition, that we are all basically climbing over each other, trying to kill each other to be the top. And actually they're finding that that's absolutely not the case at all, that actually in the whole of nature, all of it, despite whatever we try to say about it, is actually in harmony and all supporting each other. And I thought that was just the most beautiful thing about the mother tree, that in isolating certain species in order to be more productive, in inverted commas, actually they're finding that doesn't work. I mean, it seems to work in some cases, but the vast majority of it, they're actually just killing off. The trees just don't thrive because they all actually have a symbiotic relationship with each other. That's fascinating. But the resistance, it seems to be, that resistance seems to be in so many walks of life now, that this is the way we believe is the right way to do it, and nobody wants to hear anything different. Despite the evidence that's there, it's like, but it's this way, it must be this way. A bit like Dodgy Kate that we were talking about earlier. We were talking about Kate's having a big monumental internal struggle between Sparkly Kate, as Julie calls her, and Dodgy Kate, who I don't know why you said dodgy, because
the guys told me to call it dodgy, because you don't, you don't,
like egoic Kate, the one that goes,
Kate,
well, this is all just fucking nonsense and I can't be bothered and it's not working and life's too hard and I'm a victim. That one.
Yeah, well, yes, and so the guides defined dodgy for me just now. So like when I hear the word dodgy in like a British television show or British movie, it's the human you're not to believe in. I don't believe in Dodgy Kate. I believe in Sparkle Kate. So yeah. It was so interesting when you brought it up. My guides were just saying to me, look at Kate Sparkle right now, so that I could bring it back. If we revisited the Dodgy Sparkle Kate, I could bring it back to look at Kate right now. She's sparkling.
Dodgy Kate's right here. We don't need to dig very deep for her.
Dodgy, just be aware. Sorry.
It is, it's a bit Jekyll and Hyde. But yes, it's just like, well, this is the way we do it. This is very egoic and it's very masculine energy, and this is how it's always been done, and you're coming dancing out here with your fairies and your fucking rainbows and all this shit, and it's a true, that's quite a good reflection actually of everything in general in life, and the whole thing is like, why do we keep going down these roads that are not serving us, and then people have just point blank refused to see anything different. The whole field was about that, wasn't it? That there's this enormous field of quantum science that proves that everything is connected and things are not, is it Newtonian or whatever? That's just not, that's only half the story.
Yeah.
But people just don't want to know. And it's the same in medicine as well. Like everybody, not everybody, but they've proved over and over again that, again, you can't treat these things in isolation because you're just causing another imbalance somewhere else, that you have to look at the holistic approach. And they don't want to hear it. Nobody wants to hear it. We're all just like dodgy cake, just hanging on to what we believe, because if you take that away from us, then where are we?
Yeah. Yeah. As you were starting to talk there, Sparkle Kate, the guides are reminding me that, when this wanting to be competitive and all of this good stuff is a symptom of the disconnect we have from one another. So like when we see somebody on the street who is in need, or we know of somebody who's in need, and instead we feel like, specifically we see somebody on the street and we think, oh my gosh, they have a mental illness, I don't know what to do, blah, blah, blah. And that fear, like right in that moment, you can feel the fear, which is what keeps us separated. Instead of being able to look at somebody who's in need and, whatever it is, give them money. Who cares if they want booze? It's not up to you. Or if they want food, give them money so they can, whatever. But we don't allow ourselves to do that because we've been so ensconced, is that the right word, in fear, which also led me to another idea that I also just heard on Elise Lunen's fabulous podcast, Pulling the Thread, because she interviewed Jennifer Freed, who is a psychologist who also practices astrology. This woman, I was like psyched about this woman. Anyway, but she talked about back in the day, like when Jesus was born, astrology was the science. That was the only, that was the science that everybody was. So the three wise men were astrologers. Jesus himself, she said, was an astrologer, because they always used the cosmos as a understanding of everything else going on around and the connectivity of everything. So that was the original science. And then other things took over, as well as humans and the church in particular were like, wait a minute, I can see that this is actually really powerful. I can make money at this astrology. So we're going to keep it to a certain level of a couple people. And the church said, well, if you want to be connected to the spirit, to divine, you have to go through us. So we're going to poo-poo astrology, so that your only connection to the divine isn't through everything else that you have within you and everything else going around you. And you have to come through us, which was also money and power. So it's like, it's just fascinating to me when you hear that. It's like, oh, yeah, it makes sense. Just like, yeah. Then the bubonic and stuff. Yeah.
Like with religion and that, because that's what, that's how I see religion. But then the people who actually practice and participate in that, they genuinely believe that they are the one and only way. Like they, it's like they're so, it's like they don't see the hypocrisy of it all. It's that they, I'm not blaming the individuals, but what I'm saying is those individuals, there's actually something in conversations with God, and I think it's the second or the third one that actually gets quite technical, because I realize now is talking like the field is, so it actually gets quite technical. I'm like, it's just like, but he one of them, it's actually God saying, or the divine saying, take, for example, the medicine. So medicine was done for all the right reasons, to protect people, to help people get well. But it's like humans build a construct of some sort, but then that takes on a life of its own. And as soon as it takes on a life of its own, it's no longer serving the individual, it begins to serve itself. So medicine has got to a point now where it is protecting itself as medicine, and they don't want energy healers wandering in and telling you how it's done. And then of course then you've got all the money side of it as well, with the pharmaceutical companies and that. It's like, and it's the same with governments and religion, all these things. It's like the man-made structure suddenly becomes self-serving, because it's more important that the structure survives than the point of why it was developed in the first place, which I thought was, it's obvious when you see it, but it's interesting that happens just across the board with everything. And you could say that even going back to the mother tree, that's true of all professions, as it were. People at forestry or whatever, how it started with all the right intention of getting the right wood and allowing these trees that we need to grow specifically by cutting out the competition. But then they just get to a point where they're not willing to hear anything different, because they have become an institution.
Right.
Ugh.
Isn't it interesting to me? Like the guy just pointed out, like, and that's the moment when it becomes not sustainable and begins to crumble, which is the time period that we are in right now, that we chose for some reason to be here right now. I would love to know why I chose this time period.
Because it's hard, that's why. And we both love a bit of flagellation, don't we?
We do. Darn it, we do. Yeah.
On that note, I was trying to think of a word for, not the chastity is refraining from sex. What is someone who refrains from all forms of joy? Is that a nihilist? Nihilism?
Oh, maybe. Yeah, probably. I'd have to look it up, but that
I'm
sounds.
going to have to ask again, because I believe I must have taken a vow of nihilism in some past life that needs to be.
No, Dodgy Cake took a vow of that. Sparkle
Well,
Cake,
possibly. Sparkle
yeah,
Cake's trying to get
Cake.
out from under it.
Yeah, Sparkle Cake. Oh, that's why you're angry. Yeah.
It came up that my mother had taken a vow, and the word that came up was chastity, but it didn't feel quite right, because it's not about sex, it's about like enjoyment, joy. I'll have to explore that further.
Yeah. Huh. Oh, so many places to leap off. The because the Sex, Love, and Goop show comes to mind with all the different modalities of being able to enjoy being a human being and pleasure seeking, happiness seeking, all that.
I'm probably too shy to even watch that.
Oh, it's fascinating.
So do you watch it with Brad?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not like you're doing, I mean, they show you, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I think there's 6 therapists that have different modalities. And this was the first time for many of them that their practices were filmed. No one's having sex. No one's having sex on camera. Goodness, not in America. We're so puritanical, can't lock that down. Which is really interesting because one coach is very much about the energy and the energetic blueprint that you bring as a human being to another human being. That was they're all of the coaches were absolutely fascinating because they just, and this comes back to my whole theory, which isn't, I guess, just mine, but I talk about everybody having a piece of pie, and you bring your piece of pie to the party, and then you share that pie with everybody. And if you don't like that pie, that's great. If you like a different pie, that's totally fine. And then you're actually also, I just realized this morning, also bringing ingredients for other pies. Like because it's like, when I would read business books, I'd get so upset with them because it's like, this is the same thing over and over and over again. Well, of course it is, because people have to hear things. I had the theory a couple years ago, I think it's evolved, but 9 times 3 ways. You have to hear something 9 times and in 3 different ways. So you have to bring different kinds of pie 9 times, 3 different ingredients, like all this different stuff. And everybody's thing is valid. Everybody's thing is valid. So that's what I found so interesting about. They paired people with the proper coach, meaning the coach that would probably do the best breakthrough for them. But then you also learned about the coaching, and you also learned about the people. It was the whole, I just love those. I hope she does more Goop Labs on different topics, because it's just fascinating how we've kept ourselves separate from certain entities, some certain aspects of being human, like psychedelics is another one that she on her Gwyneth Paltrow's, who I'm talking about, Annalise Lunan, who was the executive producer of it, and she's in the first series. But they also talked about psychedelics, and look how much we're learning about psychedelics and how they actually had all this research that it was really, really good for different things.
And that was all about money.
Trust it, huh?
That was all about drugs and money.
Exactly.
And interesting on that point, apparently the government in Scotland, I don't know if it's the Tories or the government, have made hashish a Class A drug or something, what they're threatening to. Like everyone in the world is going the other way.
Yeah.
And really?
I know.
That means that all the people that take it for the medicinal properties are back to square one again.
Yeah. And this is the time in which we're living. Like we make some steps forward and then we take some steps back, like here in the United States.
Because it doesn't fit the mold.
Yeah. Some of this is just like, okay. Here in the United States, we only have a few weeks out until we vote. I hope everybody goes to vote. Vote, vote, vote.
So if this is RuPaul's Drag Race, we'd all have little flyers that going saying, but it's important to vote or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know what's going to happen here. I don't know if we're just going to, I'm almost hoping we have a military coup, actually, because somebody needs to get rid of our government. I don't say it lightly, but something has to happen.
When you need a different military though too, because like for here, we have this huge military complex that is based in money and power. So
well, yes, I don't know. See, when I say military, when I think of the British military, I think of, sort of wizened old Prince Phillip type people. A good heart, even if they're a bit pompous. It's probably, that's probably quite an outdated vision of the British military. I sort of, okay, maybe not a military. I don't know. Something has to happen. Something has to happen.
A flower, a petal. I'm picturing of like back in the 70s in the US and I think all over, right? Because you probably had it in England too, where they put the flowers in the guns when the military would come out to suppress the happy. Yeah. So that's where you and I come in now. That's why we're here, is to help raise the vibration and help get people see. I did tell you, right, that I shared with you the Carolyn Mace when the Queen died, and she did this thing about the transitioning of archetypes, that the Queen represented the Queen archetype, and that those archetypes are fading, and the rise of other archetypes, of which she specifically named the animal communicator archetype. Yeah.
I was going to say the Queen archetype to me, of course, is something completely different. But there we go.
It is.
Drag Race.
Oh yeah, see it? So the Queen archetype actually actually morphs into Queen, like yay, Queen, kind of. I don't know how to say it, but you know what I mean. Like where there is a stronger influence or an equalization of the divine feminine and the divine masculine.
Maybe. Oh, I didn't know. Quine? I don't know. I didn't know that.
I don't know. No, I just made that up. I don't know. I heard it. I don't know where this comes from.
Well, I should Google it and put it in the show notes.
Which one? The
whatever pronunciation of Queen you said.
Oh, quite. No, it's with the Southern accent, because it's like yes.
Why?
Instead of, so one of my heroes is Jonathan Van Ness from Queer Eye.
I know you. I know you.
Yep. I used his shampoo this morning. Those are my favorite days when I use his shampoo. It's fabulous shampoo.
Why don't you use it every day then?
Oh, well, first of all,
it's too expensive and you don't let yourself, right?
There's an element of that. However, there's also the element of not shampooing your hair every day for your hair.
No, I get that. I only wash my hair once a week.
Yeah. So if I just need a little touch up, I don't use the JVN hair. If I just need a little touch up, I have a doTERRA. Anyway, but I know this language from JVN, and I know it comes from other people, but I know JVN would go, yes, it's YAS, says yes, so yeah, Queen, or yes, Queen. That's what he'll say. So I was trying to put the whole accent together. Not that he has one, because he's from Illinois, but there's sometimes there's just ways that there's people talk about certain things, and my age is showing. But that's all I mean, is like when they go, yes, Queen. It's different than, hello, I'm the Queen. It's a shift in the architect.
Completely different thing.
Yeah.
Yes. I suspect they should be called two different things as well. I don't think one can really take over the other.
I don't know. Our language is so limited. Why not? I don't know. Anyway, yeah. I have no idea what we're talking about, and I feel like we're at a good stopping point.
I'll see what comes up when I edit it, if we can come up with a name. Otherwise we'll just call it Mishmash 3 or whatever.
Mishmash, hodgepodge, whichever. Yeah, cool. Lovely.
Okay.
Thanks, Sparkle Kate, for being here.
Well, yes, and Sparkle Kate is glad to be here, and she will try to take the wheel more often. Oh, I have a brilliant quote today in Insight Timer, and it was, it was a play on the, or not a play, sort of change between, I'm sorry, I'm just looking it up in my quote notes. There we are. So it's like a take on the journey thing. It's like mental health is not a destination but a process. It's all about how you drive and not where you are going, which I thought was really good.
That is lovely.
So we'll let Sparkle Cape take the wheel for a little while, I think. So thank you for that, Julie, and thank you everybody for being with us as we dance, stamp, cry our way through this world in all our different forms and archetypes and everything else that's going on for us. If you'd like to subscribe, what's that?
I said in pieces of pie.
And pieces of pie. I have an image of us like. So if you'd like to subscribe to us, you can do that right here in YouTube to be notified of new episodes. You can always follow us on Facebook and on Instagram. And if you have any comments or ideas of anything you'd like us to talk about, please put it below right here. Thanks very much, and we'll see you next week.